Malcolm Little was born in Omaha in 1925. He was one of 6 children born to Earl Little and Louise Little. Malcolm's father was a Baptist preacher, and his mother was a writer for Marcus Garvey's newspaper. But due to their defiant stance against racism and their staunch activism within the black community, the family was compelled to abandon their home and to relocate to Milwaukee in 1926. But shortly thereafter, circumstances compelled them to relocate once more. This time, they settled in Lansing, Michigan.
You were born in Omaha, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And your family left Omaha when you were what, 1 year old?
I imagine about a year old.
And why did they leave Omaha?
Well, to my understanding, the Ku Klux Klan burned down one of their homes in Omaha.
This
had a lot of Ku Klux
made your family feel very unhappy, I'm sure.
Well, insecure, if not unhappy.
However, as in their previous homes, the family suffered frequent harassment and intimidation at the hands of local white supremacists. Soon after they moved to Lansing, their new home was burned to the ground. Tragically, the family was never compensated for their loss.
The house burned down to the ground. No fire wagon came, nothing. And we were burned out.
This traumatic incident would, in the tender heart of Malcolm Little, entrench a bitter sentiment of vengefulness and abhorrence for the white power structure. Unfortunate as it was, this tragedy was not to be the last for Malcolm or for his family. On a fateful September night in 1931, when Malcolm was only 6 years old, his father was brutally murdered and dismembered by some local members of the KKK. His mutilated remains were found on a railway track the next morning. The homicide was dismissed by the authorities and officially ruled to be a mere accident. Some even implied that Malcolm's father had in fact committed suicide. But Malcolm, now a 6-year-old orphan, would grow up with the conviction that his father was murdered by a group of white supremacists. The incident was not a novelty to Malcolm or to his siblings, as 3 of their uncles had already been killed by racist thugs. In 1938, 7 years following the murder of his father, Malcolm's mother suffered a nervous breakdown and was sent to a mental unit in Kalamazoo State Hospital. She remained there for almost a quarter of a century, secluded from her home and from her family. Sadly, resulting from this painful course of events, Malcolm and his siblings would be split up and sent to live in different foster homes.
It kind of tickled me. I haven't written a word of it yet, but I've been talking about it like crazy out there. Just, sitting with producers, talking with the scenes and stuff. And we've just about, I was saying I wanted to try to make this my first feature movie. And then there was some really serious discussion. They finally, the other day, convinced me it needed to be long form, a mini-series. And so I said, okay, we'll make it a mini-series. And so it's now at network level, pretty much agreed it'll be either 12 or 14 hours. And we know we're going to film it in Tennessee and one thing and another. So all I got to do now is write it, that's it. And that will probably almost certainly be ABC, yeah.
That's got to put pressure on you. Do appearances?
In a way. Huh?
Do appearances like this take away a great deal of your writing time? Do you feel like you catch up when you get back home?
You should hear my agents on that subject. But I enjoy it, to tell you the truth. I'd like to come around, and I tell you, among the reasons is I don't think anything sort of bothers me a little bit much more than to sit around at some of the places in quote Hollywood, all the places that are encompassed in that, and hear people who probably haven't been out of the boundaries of it in the last 5 years, except maybe to go on location. and who really talk as if they know this country. And they haven't been in this, haven't been out about it. They wouldn't know Fort Wayne from Fort Smith, Arkansas, And I really do. I love to just go here, go there, go yonder, and just kind of touch the different parts of this country. It's, to me, exciting. And I have a much better sense I feel of the country than I otherwise possibly could have. So I enjoy it. I don't do nearly as much as I used to do of traveling, but I do a good deal. Yeah.
Down State Prison and was released in 1952. As a prisoner, Malcolm soon earned himself the nickname of Satan. He was called Satan because of his intense hatred for God and religion. In prison, Malcolm met a man called John Bembry, who was commonly known as Bimby. Malcolm had a profound respect for Bimby, who was a self-educated convict who had reformed himself and taken to serious studies while in prison. Under the guidance and encouragement of Bimby, Malcolm had developed an appetite for books that can only be described as Epicurean in proportions, and such literary indulgence that eventually led to his weakening eyesight and heavy stigmatism, subsequently resulting in his much-needed use of glasses for the rest of his life. Yet despite this setback, Malcolm consumed knowledge like a desert rose consumes sunlight. By the time he served his sentence, Malcolm had read large volumes of classical text. He had engaged in many prison debates with visiting scholars from Harvard and MIT.
That's when Malcolm's name and fame started spreading amongst the prison population. And that's when the population started to grow at the debating classes. Most of the fellas used to come over out of curiosity just to hear him speak.
During his 7 years in prison, Malcolm received a letter from his brother Filbert, informing Malcolm that he had discovered the natural religion for the black man. Filbert and the rest of Malcolm's siblings had by now joined a movement called the Nation of Islam, and they were now inviting Malcolm to also join them.
So I wrote to Malcolm and told him I said to him if he would believe in Allah, that he would get out of prison. And that's all I wrote, because I know he had very low tolerance for religion, and I didn't intend to lose that tolerance.
But to this invite, Satan responded with fierce opposition. A short while following the first correspondence, Malcolm received another letter. This time, it was from his brother, Reginald. Malcolm thought that the letter was some kind of clever strategy or a hype written in coded language to help him escape prison. This feeling of excitement gave him much hope and enthusiasm.